Hello there, Biakamis des and welcome to my review about Crisis Core. So, for the ones who follow my social media, I've been playing Final Fantasy a lot, especially the games that are related to Final Fantasy VII, because I played first the remake, then I decided to play the original, and then I took interest in other things related to the Final Fantasy VII, like the movie Advent Children, and now the Crisis Core, the PSP special, where you can play as Zack, which is only a mentioned character in the original, and here he is the protagonist, and we have the opportunity to know more about his story and to know more about Cloud as well, to see how he evolved to being what he is on the original. So of course this review will have spoilers, so you can stop watching right now if you don't want any spoilers for Crisis Core, or even if you played only the remake, you don't want any spoilers for the rest of the game, because I will tell some things that I enjoyed very much and some things that I didn't enjoy that much in this game. So this is a game for PSP. I do own a PSP, but unfortunately I couldn't play this game on the PSP because it's really hard to come by in the physical format, so I played it on the PC, and that will be important later on one of the bosses I will mention. So the game follows Zack. You can see Zack arriving in a train, just like you see Cloud arriving in the original. You can see exactly the same scene at the end of Crisis Core, because they are trying to build bridges and connections between the two protagonists. And Zack is a really charming character. I love Cloud for who he is. He's not a typical shonen protagonist, so he's not very energetic. He isn't blooming with energy and will to fight. He does fight but I feel like it's only when he needs to. Zack is a little more hot-headed. He has this enthusiastic energy, contagious, and he's a really optimistic character, and I do love that about him. So Zack, the story about Zack is you start to play him as a second-class soldier, and you see his path until he reaches first class, and ultimately until he ends that road where he dies. So we all know that Zack died, for those who played the original. He died trying to protect Cloud, and Cloud inherits his legacy. So Zack entrusts him with the Buster Sword and tells him to live for the both of them. So there's lots of things I really enjoy in Crisis Core. I love the side quests. I didn't complete all of them, but I think the mechanic of doing extra missions for more grinding, so that you don't feel like it's grinding. The missions are interesting. The side missions where you can get to talk with various characters. I think that's something I miss in the remake, because you can talk to certain characters, but they specifically give you side quests. You can talk in Crisis Core, you can talk to any character, and sometimes they don't necessarily add too much to the story or even give you extra tasks, but they are still fun to interact with. I also like the cell phone system. So Zack has this flip phone that he uses to keep in contact with everyone. He gets news through there, messages from colleagues, from friends, Turks. You can interact with anyone. Of course, it's always you receive the emails and you don't answer any of them. But you can see that he really has lots of connections with lots of people You can see that he interacts with soldiers from 3rd class, so they are still trying to move up the rankings. He also interacts with the normal soldiers, like Cloud. For those who played the original, everyone knows that Cloud is another soldier. He isn't a 1st class or a 2nd class soldier in the making. He didn't have any Mako transfusion or anything like that, so he's just a plain soldier. So he interacts with lots of people because Zack, although he is in the upper rankings, he is very humble and he's very friendly with everyone. We can see Tseng. It's funny because in the remake we can see Tseng when he is younger, or when Aerith is younger in one of the flashbacks, and Tseng looks like a vampire. He doesn't age, he looks just the same as he does in the time of the remake. And it's funny because in Crisis Core he is younger. So I don't know how did they make that. Tseng suddenly is a vampire in the remake. I don't know, but he is younger here in Crisis Core, and it's interesting to see his interactions with Zack, because Tseng has always been watching Aerith from afar, and at a certain point, because Zack told him to, he starts to watch Aerith closely, not as a mission, but to take care of her in Zack's place, because Zack is always in missions, and from a certain point he's also running from Shinra and everything. You can also see Rude and Reno, but barely. They don't do much in this game. They are there just as a little Easter egg, because they are still part of the Turks. And then you have Cisne. So in the original it was supposed to have only one girl, which was Aerith, and then they added Tifa, who ended up being the main girl for Cloud. In Crisis Core you feel like Aerith is the main girl for Zack, and then you have Cisne, who is a Turk, like Elena in the original, and she's a very close friend of Zack. There's even a scene where she supposedly greets his parents and leaves implied that she introduced herself as his girlfriend. So I don't know if she said that just to mess with him. You can see that they have an interesting relationship, but I don't ship her. She's not a... I think she is a likable character, but she isn't one of my favorites in this game. Aerith is just amazing to see in this game. You can see that she hasn't changed much from this time to the original, but you can see that some of the interactions she has with Cloud are memories that she shared with Zack. So you can see that you have one scene that she looks into Cloud's eyes in the park and she says, "Whoa, you really have these blue eyes," and stuff like that. And in Crisis Core, when Aerith and Zack are at the park, Zack suddenly tells her to look at his eyes, that those are the eyes of a soldier, and she says that they are very pretty. So you can see lots of small interactions that Aerith does with Cloud and that are influenced by what she did and what she went through with Zack. I really love their relationship. It's very casual. There's not a moment when they assume it's a relationship, but I mean, in the game you can only explore two areas. It's the Sector 8, where is the Shinra base, and the Sector 5 slums. So I mean, every time he has a break, he just runs to the Sector 5 to see Aerith, to help her with the flowers, to just be with her. You have a very emotional scene when he loses his mentor, where he's just crying and she's hugging him. It's a really beautiful relationship, and I'm really happy with the end of Advent Children because they are finally together in the live stream, and that's just, it's beautiful. Other characters, we have two characters that aren't mentioned in the original or any other parts, that are Angel and Genesis. So I think they wanted to create this trio of first-class soldiers with Sephiroth, and then you have Genesis and Angel. I really enjoyed Angel more than I expected, because I thought that Zack always had the Buster Sword, and then you discover in Crisis Core that Angel is the owner of the Buster Sword. It's a sword that was given to him by his father through lots of hard work when he announced that he was going to soldier. And I find the way he teaches Zack honor, how to deal with the sword, because use brings tear, rust, and everything. All these small things that Zack learned and that Zack brings to his way of being a soldier is through Angel, and I think Angel is a very interesting character. There was only one moment when he basically tells Zack that he has to kill him. I felt that was such an anime moment, and that Angel's character was a little bit disrespected at that moment, but I still enjoyed it. It was a really tough fight to do. It was a pain to kill him, but I really liked Angel's character overall. Genesis is a whole other story. So Genesis has a lot of problems. He is a typical anime character. I think one of the best traits of Final Fantasy VII is that it doesn't feel very anime-like. It feels like the story, although it has fantasy elements, and although Crisis Core is a bit more anime-like, I feel it still has a very grounded story, and a story that we can relate to. And then Genesis is this type of antagonist slash villain that is so anime-like. He's always quoting Loveless. I get that there's this huge thing about Loveless. You can see all the posters in the Final Fantasy VII, but he's always quoting that. He doesn't speak normally most of the time. He's really anime-like, and I think that's really off-putting. I get that they wanted to create a villain just for Zack, because I feel that's what he is. He is a villain just for Zack to fight, but still, he isn't much different from Sephiroth. He has this idea, he suddenly discovers he's not exactly human, and then he just decides he wants to take the whole world and destroy it. So it's very similar to Sephiroth. The only difference is that Sephiroth discovers who his mother really is, and he develops this mother complex where he wants to destroy the world for her. So Genesis just wants to destroy the world because he wants to. Although it doesn't really hurt the story of Final Fantasy VII, there's this one scene that is really questionable, the way he appears. So, for those who played the original, you know that at some point Sephiroth is checking the reactor in Nibelheim, and it is at that moment that he starts to question about his origins, and then at the Shinra mansion he reads all the books and reports and discovers that Genova is an alien and she's his mother. And what they decided to do in Crisis Core was, instead of Sephiroth discovering all that by himself, they put Genesis appearing because he wants Sephiroth cells. That's a whole other matter, because Genesis is deteriorating and he needs Sephiroth cells so he can reconstruct himself. So he tries to convince Sephiroth to join his cause, but Sephiroth doesn't want, because it's not his soldier honor, but he has his own ideals. And then Genesis pushes him to the fact that he is not human also. It's not a big plot hole, but it kind of makes you feel like they put him in a really unnecessary place that interferes a little bit with the Final Fantasy VII storyline. I hated Angel and Genesis bosses. Angel was really difficult. I was stuck for a really long time in Angel, but it was doable. Genesis is... I will be honest, I couldn't make the Genesis boss without cheating. So in the PC version you can do the saves in-game, and you can also do state files. So you can save wherever you want in the game. And I really had to save through the battle so I could reach the end of the battle. I was only, I think, level 35 at that point, but I know people will say, you should have done more grinding. But the grinding system is also a pain in the ass. So, this is now gameplay field. So, in Final Fantasy VII, you have the limits. So, you know what to expect from the limits. You have all the magic materials, and you have also the normal attacks, and then you have the limit gauge that is filled with how much damage you take each time. So it's something predictable. In Crisis Core you have the DMW. So the DMW is filled with the characters that Zack knows, and it's a system of lottery, like the casino. So you have these slot machines that you play at the casinos, and Zack has something like that to do limits. And although I find it interesting, because when you have the chance of having that slot machine work, you can have different limits. You can have the something like the healing wind of Aerith. You can have the apocalypse from Genesis. You have lots of limits according to the people that are closest or are a reference to Zack. And it's really interesting to see the animations, because you can hear the voice of the character and Zack responding to them, and it's really interesting. The down part of that system is that it has also, parallel to the characters, it has a number system. So the number system is also random. You only receive things when you have 3 of a kind, of course. So you only level up when you have 3 7s. And during a battle you can have the luck of leveling up 2 levels, or you can fight for numerous battles and never level up. So I understand that the grinding, meaning grinding equals more fights equals more opportunities for this 777 to appear. However, you don't feel like the grinding will give you experience, because it's not an experience system. I can fight for 10 battles and not gain any experience or not level up, and then I can fight for another 10 battles, and I level up 10 times. So it's really random, and I think that's one of the most frustrating parts of this game, is because the leveling up of the character of Zack and the leveling up of materia and other things like that, as also the limits, is very random. So you have to have the luck of getting the bonus of the slot machine. That's one part I don't like. The other part is I find it a little bit annoying that every time you start and end up a battle with random enemies or with a boss or wherever, you have this voice that says conflict start, something like that, and then conflict resolved. After you play for some hours, you start to get used to it, but I've had instances where it's like, she says the battle is short, ends, there's another enemy, and she says it again, and then ends again. It's a little bit repetitive and sometimes tiring. About the ending, I want to say that I just loved the ending. So I knew from the beginning, because we understand that from Final Fantasy VII, that Zack was going to die, but nothing could have prepared me emotionally for what I saw and what I felt. Because you have this frustrating fight with Genesis, you have this small conversation with Angel copies, and you see Zack still trying to interact with Cloud, and he still interacts a little bit with Genesis, and then Zack is just on the loose. He receives the last letter of Aerith that says that she's writing her last letter, that has been 4 years since the last time she saw him, and that she will continue to sell her flowers and just hopes that he is alright and that someday he will come to see her. Zack is still running because he's still being chased by Shinra, and he finally decides to face the soldiers. The Turks are after him, trying to find him. You can see Tseng saying to Cisne that she must find him because he has 88 letters from Aerith to deliver to him, which is a bit confusing because in the Final Fantasy VII Remake they imply that he hid them from him, but he seems worried about Zack, but the Turks fail to find him, and he faces lots of soldiers, and it's supposed to be this fight against this horde of soldiers, but you don't actually fight because it's a scripted fight. What you have is Zack desperately trying to defeat them, trying to move them away from Cloud, and the DMW is still working, but instead of getting limits, you just see flashbacks from Zack for each character, and then you have a small break, and then you go again for the battle, and Zack is absolutely down, tired, he's already hurt, wounded, and he just keeps fighting, and the last person he sees flashbacks is Aerith. And this is absolutely heartbreaking. I don't have words because I knew he was going to die, and it was a death that really, it had a really big impact on me when I saw it. And then it just ends with Zack. Zack is absolutely wounded. You can see the gunshots that went through his chest. And the Cloud approaches him, and he just gives him the Buster Sword and says, "You are my living legacy, so now live for the both of us." And he just stares into the skies, gives one last breath, and you can see Aerith feeling he just passed away. So it's It's a really good ending, and it's also so heartbreaking because at that moment I felt like I was seeing another Aerith death all over again. It's really well created, and then you can see Cloud moving on to become what we see he is in the Final Fantasy VII. So I think it's a game that tells a really good story. It complements well the Final Fantasy VII storyline, and it also can. It really impacts you as a solo game. So I think that's a really well done thing, and I really like Zach's voice acting. I like the voice acting for all the characters, and it's a really good game. There are some mechanics that I don't appreciate, some things that, of course, it's not a perfect game. It also has some years, so it would also be interesting to see. I thought, although I don't feel like you need the better graphics because they are acceptable, it would be interesting to see more of Zack in the remake, for example. It's a really well done story, and if you have played the game, tell me your thoughts. If you haven't, I hope that you didn't watch this to get many spoilers. And I really recommend for those who haven't to play this game because it's a really good game with a really good story. See you!